All right, well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for Better Business Bureau's mid-year report focused on the state of consumer scams. My name is Heather Massey, Vice President of Communications for Better Business Bureau, serving the heart of Texas. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Everything looks good? All righty, we will get started. So various technological innovations in the past decade have enabled fraudulent actors to expand their reach by using coercion, threats, impersonation, or other methods of manipulation. Millions of Americans' financial well-being and confidence in a trustworthy marketplace is being negatively affected, often influencing their purchasing behavior and taking a significant mental, physical, and emotional toll. To help combat against the rising tide of scams, Better Business Bureau introduced its scam tracker system in 2014 that provides an opportunity for consumers to report encounters with scammers or unethical businesses. The interactive system allows consumers to search for potential scams by phone number, business name, website, zip code, and multiple other queries to gain peace of mind and avoid unscrupulous practices. Big word already for this afternoon. Last year, in partnership with Amazon and Capital One, BBB Scam Tracker received a massive update that included front and back end improvements, allowing BBB to analyze consumer reported scams with much greater precision. However, fighting scammers takes everyone, and we encourage anyone who encounters a scam to report it to Better Business Bureau so we can identify trends or shifts in scam tactics and issue public warnings when needed. Today, you'll hear from multiple Better Business Bureau experts about how scams are affecting Texas residents in 2023, the types of scams certain age groups are most susceptible to, a narrow focus on recent increases in employment scams, and a historical overview on how scams have changed over the past 5 years. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end of the presentation. As we cover the information and data contained in today's presentation, I want to take a moment to draw attention to a 2021 study sponsored by the Federal Trade Commission that concluded that less than 5% of victims of mass market fraud report their experience to BBB or a government entity. So while many of the findings we'll present today are shocking, there is a high likelihood it only reflects a small percentage of what Texas consumers are encountering in the marketplace. Thank you again for taking the time to be with us today. Jason Meza, Senior Regional Director for BBB Serving the Heart of Texas, will now discuss what is being reported so far this year. Jason?
Thank you, ma'am. So far this year, losses have exceeded total losses during the entire year of 2018 through 2022. That's at $4.3 million. That's huge. While we're only received about 2,000 direct complaints here at Better Business Bureau this year, it's kind of typical in the first half of the year. The amount of money going out the door and into scammers' pockets is very concerning to us. BBB strongly recommends that consumers obviously take the time to verify legitimacy of people they're interacting with, particularly when it comes to cryptocurrency and investment opportunities and employment, online purchases. But again, those losses are exceeding total losses for that period in 4 years. Now, the majority of money lost this year is due to cryptocurrency and investment scams, over $1.6 million. But nearly 770,000 has been lost to online purchases, sweepstakes scams, and 780,000 plus to various other scams that aren't listed on the screen. So we've only received about 37 reports of cryptocurrency and investment scams. The average money lost to these scams is significantly higher than other types of fraud that we've seen. Looking a little bit deeper into cryptocurrency and investment scams, we have two examples that kind of reflect a lot of the reports that we're seeing here at the Better Business Bureau. The first is a typical example of where a consumer goes and they're working with a supposed trader. They meet somebody on social media, they send them a series of payments for investing into cryptocurrency. Often these fraudulent traders provide fake dashboards, phantom results, showing them, look how amazing your performance is on the investments, encouraging them to invest more and put more money into this scheme. But however, when the victim attempts to withdraw the money, they vanish. The trader disappears, they charge additional amounts, withdrawal fees, and communication stops. So the second example is kind of a hybrid of a romance and cryptocurrency scam we see reported a lot here at BBB. Dating apps are great ways to meet other people. They're frequently used by romance scammers at the same time to contact their victims. In some cases, online romance interests may convince their targets to invest in certain funds like cryptocurrencies, digital wallets, leveraging that romantic link. So when the victims eventually detect some kind of fraud, they're often out thousands of dollars. When comparing all these rates BBB has received from January through May of this year to the previous years, we see a huge increase in money lost to cryptocurrency and investment, employment, online purchase, and sweepstakes scams. We're keeping pretty close eye on what's happening with employment scams this year due to both the number of reports and the money loss, which is much higher than typical. But shortly, Devin Benavides here on our team will focus more on what we're seeing with employment scams in particular. But finally, looking at the number of reports, we see online purchase scams rebounding from last year and exceeding the reports during the height of COVID at 687. That's just this year. And as I mentioned previously, employment scams have increased 3 to 4 times what we received the first half of the year, coming in at 471, whereas typically last year we only received 97. Okay, passing on to our next presenter.
Thank you, Jason. So I am Katie Galan. So we're going to look at this in terms of age range. So far this year, 35 to 44-year-olds have lost nearly $1.6 million. So they're right at the very top of this age group or this age bracket. So they're followed by 45 to 54-year-olds at 826,000. 65 plus are at about 726,000. 25 to 34-year-olds at almost 460,000, and 55 to 64-year-olds at about 242,000. And at the very bottom of this list are 18 to 24-year-olds at nearly $50,000. But what we're also seeing, and what's pretty significant about this, is that the disproportionate amount of money that's lost for older adults. So far, those reports from those older adults comes in at 282 scams, but the average loss here is at about $2,500. So for our 35 to 44-year-olds, the biggest loss that we see is due to cryptocurrency and investment scams. And it's really important that people take the time to verify the legitimacy of a trader or investment opportunity, of course, before providing any money. And as Jason mentioned earlier, these fraudsters or scammers, they typically pretend to be associated with legitimate companies, and falling for these scams, a lot of times, unfortunately, results in tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars lost. So across our other age groups, sweepstakes scams or lottery scams, as we sometimes see, are a major issue for 65-plus-year-old residents. And employment scams are going to take most of the toll on 18 to 24-year-olds. And online purchase is going to come most prevalent for 45 to 54-year-olds. So let's expand out from just this year, and we can see how certain types of scams have historically affected different age groups since about 2018. So, once again, we are seeing sweepstakes or lottery scams that are really affecting our older adults or elderly residents, with about $460,000 lost over the past 5.5 years. So, meanwhile, online purchase and cryptocurrency or investment scams are affecting all age groups. And the most losses are coming from that age group of 35 to 54, that combined age group. So we're also seeing a noticeable effect of romance scams with the 35 to 44 and 65 plus age groups. Now, while cryptocurrency and investment scams typically result in a significant monetary loss, the number of reports received are typically the lowest that are submitted to us, to BBB. And another major issue that we have identified here is that the number of phishing scams is affecting all age groups. So everybody is really, really affected. It's, we typically talk about the dollars lost, but we have to also look really closely at phishing and identity. So that really is affecting all age groups. And so while they don't result, again, in the loss of money, the people who fall victim to phishing, they're typically, placing their personal information at risk and may be more susceptible to that identity theft. So you can also see a recognizable trend here in the effect of employment scams, which are typically more prevalent for those who are in the younger age bracket. So although 18 to 24-year-olds reports taper off a little, it's most likely due to this particular age group kind of underreporting scams to us, which unfortunately, is a big problem that we see across the state. And so Devin Benavides, who is our regional director out in Permian Basin, she's going to focus a little bit more on what we're seeing with employment scams this year. And so compared to baseline percentages of money lost to scams, which is shown here at the top of this graph, we can compare how various age groups are affected. And one big noticeable outlier here is the other group for 65+ year olds, which typically contains other issues in the marketplace like tech support, credit card, advanced fee loans, or some other issues. So please feel free to get in contact with us if you all would like any more information about anything that we are presenting here today. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Devin for a little bit more in-depth look at the employment scams.
All right, thank you, Katie. Well, while employment scams and losses took a steep decline after 2019, possibly due to the effects on the job market due to the COVID restrictions that were in place, they are making a rebound this year. Already, reports and losses this year have exceeded total reports and losses in 2020 through 2022 and are about 30,000 less than what the BBB received in 2019. Now, when compared to similar time ranges of the year, we can really see how much employment scams are skyrocketing in the first half of 2023, with nearly 200,000 more in reported losses than what BBB has received since 2019, and 100,000 more than in 2018. So employment scam reports are coming from residents across Texas, but if we look at where they are really focused in on, we can see that the majority of reports are coming from major metropolitan areas of Dallas, Houston, and the Central Texas I-35 corridor. We are also seeing quite a few reports coming from El Paso to the west, and Brownsville or McAllen areas of South Texas. So unfortunately, these recent increases in employment scams are not just specific to the Lone Star State. Across the nation, BBB found employment or job scam losses are up over 250% in January through March of this year when compared to the same time last year. From 2020 to March of 2023, the median loss to an employment scam is $1,000. But that doesn't include the additional costs that job seekers encounter when their identity is stolen as a result of providing sensitive information to a fraudulent employer. Now, some red flags of an employment scam include positions that require you to pay money to apply, higher than average pay, or interview processes done strictly over email or a web-based chat platform. So employment scams almost always include a work from home or remote working component, and a vast majority of reports revolve around package reshipment or data entry positions. Now, this report from a Texas resident reflects what we typically receive for package reshipment. So the first is that high-paying offer and bonuses. For most victims of this scam, they receive and ship packages as they expect, but when it comes time for their first paycheck, just as is in the case here, their dashboard is disabled and they're unable to contact anyone about receiving that payment. So con artists using an employment scam will often impersonate legitimate or well-known companies to give that sense of security. In this example, we can see a few typical signs of a fraudulent data entry position. Chatting through Microsoft Teams for the interview and hiring process, but where data entry or office positions get dangerous is when the company claims it'll pay the applicant to set up their home office. The money they provide for office equipment is often through a fake check, or in this case, by linking directly to the victim's bank account. So for more information about what the BBB is seeing with employment scams and how job seekers can avoid them, please reach out to us. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Amy Razor, Fort Worth Regional Director, who will give a quick overview of a few 5-year trends and stats.
Thanks, Devin. Over the past 5 years, reports of online purchase scams peaked in 2020, but we are already seeing losses to these scams this year the total losses since 2018 at nearly 770,000 lost with 675 reports. Among online purchase scams, the most costly are pet scams, which Texas residents often lose thousands of dollars between an online fraudulent seller or fraudulent logistic company used to supposedly deliver the animal. Other major issues include purchasing high-priced items online, such as automobiles, RVs, jewelry, or high-end electronics. While most reports originate around metropolitan areas, they have become more widespread since 2018. A particularly interesting trend is the blossoming of reports received around Dallas and the Central Texas region. As consumers shift more to online marketplaces and engage with sellers, it is important they take the time to verify the legitimacy of a seller before sending any money, and to be especially wary if they insist on payment through non-traditional methods, such as gift cards, mobile banking apps, or wire transfer. Scammers know that these payment methods are instantaneous and challenging to dispute. Whenever possible, BBB recommends using a credit card for all online purchases, which are often easier to dispute charges for goods or services not received. Combining all reports BBB has received since 2018, Texas residents have lost more than 16 million to scams, with single most costly type being online purchase scams at 3.4 million, or 21% of all losses, followed by cryptocurrency or investment scams at 3.1 million. More than 4.7 million has been lost to various other scam types, such as fake checks, advance fee loans, government grants, or travel scams. Additionally, Texas residents have reported nearly 20,000 scams to BBB since 2018, with the single most reported being online purchases with over 5,000 reports, followed by phishing at nearly 2,600 reports, and employment scams at nearly 2,500 reports. Across all scams for the past 5 years, a common trend we see is the use of impersonation to build credibility. BBB's 2022 Scam Tracker Risk Report highlights some of the most commonly impersonated companies used across the nation, including Amazon, Geek Squad, Medicare, and supposed lottery winner Manuel Franco. Thank you for your time. I'd like to reintroduce Heather Massey, Vice President of Communications, to conclude today's presentation.
Thank you, Amy. Those lotto winners are always reaching out, offering us money, and seems so good, so amazing, but of course those aren't true. So we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. We're now going to open it up to questions. I believe Kyle can unmute everyone, or you can drop those questions in the chat. And as always, if you have any additional questions after this is over, feel free to reach out to any of us. All of our contact information is on the screen, and we'll make sure that we can get that information over to you, provide some sound bites or any interviews if you are interested in pursuing that avenue. So do we have any questions? I see a hand raised. Okay, I see Mike. Mike, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mike. I'm a reporter with WOAI News in San Antonio. I wanted to ask you a question about scams and the rise of artificial intelligence. We've done a lot of stories about AI and how it's becoming more sophisticated, how AI can be used to imitate people's faces and their voices. I was hoping to ask you about how AI is affecting scams now and into the future.
Well, Mike, that's a great question. As AI is relatively new to most people, we haven't seen anything reported yet through our scam tracker, and most likely people that have been affected so far by this just haven't reported it or maybe don't understand it. As we're going to put out warnings as we move forward, it's going to kind of go into the same thing that we do with any other scam. Is just do your research, check things out. I mean, as we know in all the chats and software that's coming up, it's really going to change the way we communicate and how other people, are finding that information online, as well as looking for jobs or any type of employment. So as this transitions, we're definitely going to watch the trend and pivot in those directions, so we're able to provide relative information to people that have been a potential victim of scams and offer them solutions so they really know how to combat that. Okay, Betty, you are unmuted. Go right ahead. So Betty is telling me that you have to unmute.
There we go. Now I bet you can hear me.
I sure can, Betty. Go right ahead.
Wonderful. Can you walk me through what a typical pet scam would be? Is this a situation where someone is saying they have animals? Or you just tell me what would be a typical one?
Right. So I'm going to turn that over. I think, Amy, do you want to talk about the pet scams since that was in your segment?
Sure. And we've seen an increase of these over the last few years, especially with the pandemic and people being home and wanting to add new fur babies to their families. And so often what we see is someone that is interested in an animal, they start the purchase process. And then we see a lot of times those prices are already pretty high. And then there are additional fees that are continually tacked on with the transport of the animal or finding a way to get that animal to the purchaser. Unfortunately, most of the time, these pets do not even exist. A lot of times it's even stock photos that people are using to sell these animals. And so we really encourage people to do is to meet the animal in person, and certainly check out any previous purchases that others have made or other comments about the seller. But unfortunately, it has become quite common, and that is usually the tactic is to offer false credentials for the type of or breed of the animal, and information that will entice you to pay a higher price, and then additional fees that get tacked on later.
Thank you.
And I want to just jump on that really quick, Betty, just a quick note on that. One of the ways that we kind of advise people to kind of use precaution when it comes to this is to do reverse image lookups. And so that can go across the board for anything that you're buying online. But we have found in particular with the pet scams, if people would just take that image and, just type, put it into Google, into that reverse image lookup, a lot of times you'll see that that is a stock photo or that it's originated from some random, Facebook account in a whole state away or something like that. So that is something to consider when we're looking at pet scams too.
Thank you, Katie and Amy, of course. All right, do we have any other questions? I don't see any hand raised, but definitely want to open that up if you had any more questions here.
Okay. There is a question in the Q&A section.
Perfect. So once the money is lost, can it be recovered by law enforcement or another agency? So Seth, unfortunately, the overall answer is no. The way scammers do is they use those methods of payment, such as gift cards or wire transfers, that are virtually impossible to trace. So it's one of those rules of thumbs we put out to people when you are doing anything, purchasing goods online or any type of services, that you use a traditional method of payment, such as a credit card. And that way, if you do have any disputes or something happens, you can go to your credit card company and they can investigate the transaction further. So most of these rings of scammers that go with law enforcement, they try to look into them. They often pick up and move. They change everything. They use burner phones. So it is nearly impossible to get your funds back once you've been a victim of this. We just tell people the main thing with Scam Tracker, you can go online, it's a free interactive tool, and it's great because people can go look and they can see what's happening in their backyard. So it's interactive, you can see what scams are happening if you're in Austin, Midland, Odessa, Fort Worth, exactly what's going on. You can also help your friends and family. If they're in another area, maybe you have an elderly grandmother that's been a victim of something, you can actually see what's happening in her area and how many people have reported this as well. Okay, Seth. It's showing up. There we go.
Hey there, Seth Bodine with the Fort Worth Report. I saw that the Dallas metro area was a major area that saw a boom in scams. I'm wondering if this is mostly online scams, or is it people showing up in person with like an Amazon shirt, and if so, how do you deal with those people and verify their identity?
So I'll let Amy chime in as well here, since she is in Fort Worth, but the majority are online. So I'll just give you the initial answer. We do have occasionally the door-to-door people that come through. Those are normally through like storm chasers, saying they have material to make those quick repairs. They're offering they often really pressure you into making a decision on the spot. If it's a deal, if it's, you know, roofing, if it's insurance, whatever it is, they have an act now deal that you need to like give them your information. What we tell people, even if they're looking for maybe charitable donations door to door, is anyone that wants your business or your money or your repeat charitable donation, is they're going to give you time to think. So just ask for the business card, let them know you're going to do your research and get back to them. And then if they're just pressuring you to make that decision right now, it's a pretty good red flag. They're not legitimate. But to say that, we do see the majority is focusing on the online scams. Okay, Betty.
Yes, I was wondering if you are seeing more of these scams, maybe use Venmo and other, you know, cash apps, and also making it harder for people to get their money back.
I'll turn this, I'll let somebody else answer so y'all get sick of me talking. I'll say, Jason, do you want to respond to Betty there?
Sure. The rule of thumb for Cash App virtual wallets is always friends and family only. So yes, the exploitation of Cash App is so convenient, so easy, it's quick to pay. We see it with legitimate contractors or business brokers here in San Antonio where they say, look, so you can pay me through Cash App. But doing that, you really, consumers don't realize they let go of a lot of protections when they do Cash App. So it's an uphill battle to get money back, to prove fraud exists on a peer-to-peer payment system. It's truly a lot of built-in communication gaps, because obviously it's these peer-to-peer payment systems are the go-between. They're the communication arm between your bank and yourself. So if you authorize, or if it looks like you authorized a payment via Cash App, proving fraud existed is hard. So we tell all the time people, if you're going to make a payment through Cash App, make sure you've met them in person, you know them personally, or their friends or family, because yes, it is increasingly, insanely hard to get money back via Cash App. So best method, as Heather mentioned, is credit card purchases online.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. All right. Do we have any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat, and no other hands are currently raised, but we'll give you a few more seconds if you think of something that you want to ask. And just to reiterate again, please reach out to any of us at any time. We have our emails right there, and our general email. We'll go ahead. I'll drop that in the chat right here. For any type of media inquiries, if you maybe reach out to one of us, we're out of office, we always have that response in our emails, but it's our general email is media@austin.bbb.org. So I'll throw that in the chat as well. Super easy to remember if you have anything, but as always, please reach out to us for anything. We are always here to help.